Hey everyone, I hope you've had a chance to read Day 17, the recent article I posted about a gentleman by the name of Patrick, who I like to call a friend now, who just opened a restaurant called Ruffian in the East Village of New York. Patrick had had a dream for years to open a restaurant, and he finally made it happen. And I got the chance to sit down with Patrick to enjoy the food at his restaurant, which was amazing. So if you're ever in New York, go to Ruffian in the East Village. I highly recommend it. It's been written up in the New York Times since my time there. But one of the interesting things with Patrick was, since this had been a dream of his for a long time, I knew there had to have been challenges along the way, and I knew there were steps that he had to have taken, and I wanted to pull those out so that I could share those with you guys. And what's very interesting is as I started to ask him the questions, his answers were shocking and inspiring all at the same time. So here's what I asked him. I'm actually going to look on the computer to make sure that I get the answers right. So first thing I asked him was, what was your biggest challenge in your pursuit to open a restaurant? And here's what he said. He said, getting started, it was really hard to estimate the cost and the risk without spending money. They had a hard time deciding on the scale and the scope of what they could do and what they could financially afford to risk. And that makes sense. I totally get that. So then I asked the follow up question, which was, how did you overcome that challenge? And this is where it starts to get really interesting. He says, we shot for small. Shot for small. Like, who thinks about shooting for small when it comes to going after your dreams? Typically, I would say, we got to shoot for big, but Patrick said we shot for small, and this is what he said after that. He said, opening a wine bar had limited cost and less elements for us to estimate. This was a step. Patrick wanted to open a full restaurant. He still wants to have a full restaurant at some point, but he didn't have the ability to take the risk financially and know what the costs were going to be. So he decided to open something a little bit small. I asked him then, what was the single most important step you took in this process? And he goes, it was when we stopped looking for restaurants, ones that had full kitchens and gas, and we started looking for smaller spaces that could only use electric equipment. Again, he had a dream, open a restaurant. Now his dream is changing, it's morphing right in the middle of the process because he's looking at the steps that he can take versus looking at the things that he can't do. Here's the next question. Was there a time when you considered not taking that step? Why? And what ultimately pushed you over the edge? Here's what he said. He said, many of my friends and confidants were excited about the idea of a restaurant, and less so by a wine bar. The small size and lack of gas equipment made most normal people feel uncomfortable or made them think that we would be doing something simple. And so then I asked him, well, Patrick, what advice would you give to other people? Because you obviously did something that changed the game. It's a different type of an experience. In fact, I've never been to a place like it before. And this is what he said. He said, don't be scared to innovate. He said, we realized that the team that he had was very familiar with electric equipment and small spaces. But no one was really doing that. No one was really creating a restaurant and wine experience without having full kitchens. And so they said, let's do it. We can estimate the cost, we can take a calculated risk, and we can take a step towards our dream without risking everything that we have. I think Patrick's advice and his story is phenomenal, and I encourage you, go visit Patrick and talk to him about it. And if you don't have the opportunity to get to New York, think about what Patrick did and apply it to your dreams and to your life. And see if there's an area where you can shoot for small, and by shooting for small, you may just end up innovating and creating a whole new concept just like Patrick did.